So the opportunity presented itself to do another NASCAR video. Y'all come along, we got 3 stops planned for the day. I'm Todd Touchberry, and I try to keep this channel about pre-war automobiles. But I also love digging into the history of NASCAR and stock car racing. Today my buddy David and I are exploring Occoneechee Speedway, Petty Enterprises, and more. Y'all come along. I had heard this abandoned NASCAR track still existed, and I wanted to put my eyes on it. Turns out the track was repurposed into a hiking and walking area. Now you can tell we're not hikers, but let's do some exploring and talk about the stock car racing history that was made here. NASCAR's Big Bill France started this 0.9-mile track in 1947 on the side of an old horse racing track. After a short walk, it appeared, a weathered, red clay and gravel oval that seemed to be carved into the forest. If you spend enough time around old cars and old tracks, you know there are places that seem to hold on to noise. Even in silence, they're never really quiet. Occoneechee Speedway was one of those places. As we started making our lap, I felt like we had stepped into a black and white photograph, and I started imagining myself as a young driver hoping to make a name for myself. Maybe Bob Flock. He started his career back in the 1930s and won over 200 local races before NASCAR came along. In Grand National competition, his accomplishments included winning the first ever pole position and leading the first 5 laps in NASCAR. He won his first race here at Occoneechee Speedway in 1949, driving his 1948 Oldsmobile, and took home a check for $5,000. By the way, he led every lap. Just 2 years earlier, he had suffered a severe back injury in Spartanburg, which we highlighted in our last video, and in 1951 he was sidelined after breaking his neck and back. In just 36 NASCAR starts, he would win 4 of those. His brothers Fonte and Tim picked up several wins here as well. Bob Flock died of a heart attack on May 16, 1964 in Atlanta, Georgia at the age of 46. Also in that race were Sarah Christian and Louise Smith, 2 women drivers who made up the field. Smith, who we talked about in our last NASCAR-inspired video, was in this horrible crash that took over 30 minutes to free her. She walked away but then climbed back into the car to pose for photographers. The Greenville, South Carolina resident required 48 stitches and 4 pins in her left knee from the research that I found. In 1950, a 21-year-old Fireball Roberts would hold off former bootlegger Curtis Turner for the win. Roberts had 37 Grand National wins. He died from complications from a crash in Charlotte in 1964. Turner would pick up wins here in 1953 and 1959 and become known as the Babe Ruth of stock car racing. Lee Petty and Buck Baker both fared well here too and picked up 3 wins apiece. And what about Junior Johnson? On March 10, 1963, he picked up his one and only victory here. But hey, if you have to pick one to win, choose the one that Jane Mansfield is there to present the trophy. Junior won a whopping $1,550 on that particular day, but who cares about the money when you're standing in victory lane with Jane Mansfield? He'd win 50 races as a driver. Just a little bit further into our lap, we ran into a local who was out getting some exercise, and he told us about him and his dad who used to come to the races here.
The interesting side story here is that my dad being among them, kids would come from this social development now, come down here, come across the river, climb up these trees, and watch the race. They'd get themselves up.
Oh wow!
The ones that track ends right there, and then over there is you'll see the stands in the background. You'll come to them. You'll come to them and. In the middle there, that grassy area is where Orange High played football here, and Orange High School didn't build a stadium for '73. I guess they were built about '63. So when the racing stopped in '68, they started playing football games out here.
Oh wow!
And, the high school and the junior high. You can see the old goalpost right down there. You can see one.
Oh, I see it.
You'll see them.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And other than that, I mean, make sure like when you come back.
As we continued our lap, we noticed the corners worn by weather and decades, but still curved with purpose. You could trace the line that drivers like Wendell Scott once took into the corners and imagine the bravery it required to hold your foot in just a second longer than common sense would allow. Scott had 3 top 10s here. And back then, these weren't the sanitized machines wrapped in sponsorship and engineer jargon. These were stubborn, homemade missiles built by mechanics, farmers, dreamers, and lunatics with enough nerve to believe that they could outrun the next guy. On October 27, 1963, Joe Weatherly, one of racing's most popular drivers at the time, scored his final victory here. He passed away just a few months later from a crash in California. The track held a memorial race and David Pearson picked up that win. As we continue on, I thought about drivers like Ned Jarrett, who won here twice, and I thought about NASCAR Hall of Famer Cale Yarborough, who finished 22nd in the fall race of '64. Cale was from Timminsville, South Carolina, and a local hero and friend to many in my hometown of Sumter. Cale finished his career with 69 poles, 83 wins, and 3 championships. He is buried in Timminsville, South Carolina. As we headed to the checker flag for our lap, it hit me that this is the 3rd track that I have visited so far this year that is closed, and it's the only surviving track from the inaugural NASCAR season. Just a little bit further down in our lap, I looked up in the stands and wished that I could have been here cheering these guys on. Ones like Neil Castles, Buddy Arrington, Roy Main, just to name a few. On September 15th, 1968, Richard Petty would take his Plymouth to victory lane for the Hillsboro 150 in the final NASCAR race held here. He had 3 victories here. I think one of the coolest things that they've done here was to have these old race cars sitting on the front stretch. Let's check them out. If you happen to know the year, make, or model, or who drove them, leave me a comment. As we headed to the truck, I realized that the Speedway wasn't glamorous, it wasn't trying to impress anyone, it has simply endured sun, rain, neglect, time, and even politics. They had all taken their swings at it, and somehow it was still standing here in the woods, telling anyone who cared enough to listen, this place mattered. Since Petty won the last race here, let's head over to his shop next. Alright, that concludes our 45-minute or so lap around the Occoneechee Speedway. It's pretty cool. Really love the fact that they've saved this place and kept it from just growing over and repurposed it for a cool walking trail for the people of the area. So anyway, next stop, if David ever gets back. If you're headed into Random, North Carolina and have never been here before, you may think you're in the wrong place. Then all of a sudden, Lee Petty's house and the whole Petty Enterprise garage. I've tried to make it here 2 other times, but they were closed both times. This was my 3rd attempt to try to see the museum, but this time it was planned and I knew they'd be open. We paid our admission fee. They do have a discount for military and senior citizens, which David was, so he got a $2 off discount, and then we headed on in. That's David there with the King. As we were buying our admission tickets, I asked the lady up front, what is the one thing in here that's most overlooked? She was stumbled because she still sees things in there that's been there for years. The guy that was in line to make a purchase said, don't overlook the gun collection. He said it's overwhelming. He was not lying. Many of the serial numbers were number 43 in honor of Richard, and in the window here you can see some of the family heirlooms. In this cabinet, you'll see some of the dolls that Linda Petty collected while she was on the road, and then more guns. I'm telling you, it's an overwhelming collection. And then up top, you'll see some of the silver platters and trophies that Richard won for different various awards. '84 Pontiac. This is a duplicate. The helmet on this particular car was one that Richard wore in 1994, and he was wearing in his 200th win. This is fire suit from his 200th victory. Kyle Petty fire suit from 2024. '70 Superberg. Finished 4th in the Grand National point standings, 40 starts, 18 wins, 27 top 5s, 31 top 10s. Richard missed 6 races this year because of a crash at Darlington.
Yeah. That's it. So how's it going to work?
'67 Plymouth. Richard Petty's winning his car. He won 27 races, 19 poles. He was 67 Grand National champion. 1959 Oldsmobile 88 hardtop. It's a replica. Tons of trophies. In one of the trophy cases, I actually have one of these.
I see your pictures too. Okay. Sorry, not to agree much.
Richard, Lee, Dale and Maurice.
That's what I did. That's the same thing. Same thing. If you go to school, you can do this. And this is what happened.
And, you know, he'd work all day at the shop. You know, he'd have hanging on him with grease and stuff. Then he'd go to school. Well, after
I was doing my stuff, but I was a stinky.
that didn't last long.
No, 3 or 4, a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, that's 2 or 3, man. Maybe.
The garage that's open in the back, that's where everything is. This building was added onto Petty Enterprises in 1969 to make room for the Fords. It later became the car maintenance building for Richard and Kyle.
There we go.
2007-2008 Dodge Charger for Kyle Petty.
Today, I'm going to talk just a minute about this car beside us. Now, it's the only car in here that's really not a race car.
Right, this is my personal race.
Kyle Petty drove this car to victory in the World 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway in '87.
210. We also have the last uniform that he ever wore, and his helmet, which is this one.
People there are the greatest people in the world. And this story will tell you how great they really are. Tornado touchdown, less than a quarter mile away in a field across the street. And we're-
Assortment of vintage cars, games, models,
It's not a
etc.
good night in the Petty household that night.
I think we got space.
I'm
26 Model T that belonged to Lee Petty. Traded a horse for it. That's pretty cool.
I remember it being very hot.
33 Dodge, bought by Richard from a man in Martinsville. 64 Barracuda. That was a very short stint by Richard. '57 Oldsmobile. That was Richard's first race car. Richard Petty's 1992 Pontiac Grand Prix, when he took his final lap in before retirement. Who else was watching this race live? I cannot remember ever pulling harder for any person or any team than I did for them to get this car back out on the track for him to make one more lap. '87 Pontiac, 0 wins, 9 top 5s, 13 top 10s. Richard finished 8th in the points. Richard Petty's Harley. A ton more trophies. Let's start on this side.
In April 2000, the keys to the family kingdom were passed to a new generation. His first attempt to qualify for his first Cup Series race by making the field having made history.
Actually have that coffee can. see that. This is Adam Petty's motorcycle.
The 19-year-old Petty died of head injuries after he crashed during practice for a race tomorrow at the
This was
New Hampshire
Adam's race car.
International Speedway. Adam Petty was the son of current driver Kyle Petty, grandson of Richard, and the great-grandson of NASCAR pioneer.
Made his Winston Cup debut in Texas 2000.
I was here.
His Legends car. Go-kart.
Got me and said, "Hey, somebody needs you."
Whizzer bike.
And
Adam's ARCA car.
Hilton that called and said, "Adam just had a terrible accident." And said, "It don't look good."
Here's a timeline of the Pettys, 49 to 64, Lee Petty years.
Well, the way it's supposed to be
You got 58 to 65, second generation of success,
So when it
Richard.
gets out of order, then you begin to
Richard
question,
crowned the king
"Dude,
from
why does something like
69,
this not right?"
65 to
So,
79,
the darkness comes
72 to 92, the king
profound
rules,
loss of losing someone
3
that you
generations,
truly loved, that was
Pettys.
a part of you. But the darkness also comes from being thrust into a whole new world.
And then
You don't know
Adam,
what the
4th
rules are.
generation.
I wished I could give you a magical, mystical, miraculous answer to how you deal with loss, but there isn't. Everybody deals with it differently, and unfortunately, when you go through what we've been through, you wake up in the morning and you still have to get up, and you don't want to.
I almost overlooked all the checkered flags from the different victories. 74 Dodge Charger driven by Richard Petty. It was built right here at Petty Enterprises. It was purchased by Milton Burnett at an auto auction, restored by the Petty brothers.
Is for us to change our lifestyle.
1992 Pontiac driven by Richard, last year of his driving career. 79 Oldsmobile. Richard won his 6th Daytona 500 in this car. He also won his 7th championship that year.
When I would go to the racetrack and get in his car, get in his seat.
This car was built to celebrate the years that Winston was involved in NASCAR, 71 to 2003.
Than I felt anywhere else.
1996 Dodge Craftsman Truck Series, built by Petty, driven by Jimmy Hensley. Bobby Lamonte car of tomorrow, has the different wing on the back. It was built here at Petty, driven by Bobby Lamonte in 2007 and 2008. This car was built for Kyle Petty in 2004, represents the many hands that helped make Victory Junction Camp a reality. It's pretty cool that they saved a dirt track tire from 1970.
This is all good and all. You tell the way to feel about it, but it is said and done.
426 Hemi between 64 and 72. That engine was outlawed by NASCAR. Maurice Petty put his 1936 Chevrolet Street. This engine was outlawed by NASCAR. Maurice Petty put it in his 36 Chevrolet Street Rod. Here's an aerial photo of Petty Enterprises. It's really hard to understand how big this place is when you just pull up to the front gate. 48 Packard owned by Kyle. Lee Petty built his first race car in this Reaper shed in 1949. Most of what you see in the exhibit are original Petty items. This part of Petty Enterprises is a historical landmark in Randolph County. Here you'll see just how close Lee Petty's house was to the shop. When they needed to expand, his wife said, "No closer to the house, you got to go the other way." And so they did. If anyone has any information on who's leasing the shops now, or if it's still done through Petty to do these restoration jobs, let me know. Leave a comment. And if you're going to collect stuff, collect flag stands. This is from Lakewood Speedway, Atlanta, Georgia, site of Richard Petty's first professional win in 1959. That's pretty cool. One last look from out front, and we were ready to get some lunch. At the recommendation of the lady working at the counter, we went to P&J's Diner. They had a pretty good menu. It was a little confusing when we went in. We didn't know if to sit down or order at the counter, but anyway, you sit down. So we had a hot dog and corn dog, and that's the first one of those I've had in a while. Our final stop for today brings us to Welcome, North Carolina, and Richard Childress Racing. I think we just made it. And if you're planning on coming to Richard Childress Racing, don't plan on Monday. It's closed. I have no idea what we're going to do now. Alright, none of our 3 backup plans worked. We were going to go to the Hall of Fame. We'd have less than an hour, and it was $30 to get in. Hendricks closed in 15 minutes of us arriving, and Curb Records and Museum closed within 15 minutes of us arriving. So our next backup plan, JR Motorsports. Oh, this is a little bit better setup than I have.
I'm gonna buy something out here.
Yeah, I'll probably get a little something.
Yeah, about let's see if there's enough down. I'm gonna get you something on
here. So unfortunately, they don't allow pictures or video inside the shop area, and that's understandable. They got their secrets and everything, but it was really cool to see a very active shop. There's probably 18 better people that we could see actually working on the cars, and I'm sure there's some in the parts room and everything else and behind the scenes that we couldn't see. If you get a chance to come by here, I highly suggest it. And thanks for watching. Hope you don't get tired of the NASCAR content. We have at least 2 more videos this year planned with some shops and such, but don't forget, if we don't see you around here, we'll see you around.
You here?